So some of the common mistakes that brands do when it comes to storytelling is positioning yourself as the hero. When I go back to what I said about the purpose and the why we exist, you're actually doing, or rather creating, products that actually feel a certain objective for my consumer, for your consumers and for your customers. So if you position yourself as I'm coming to save, or rather solve your problems, rather than what value am I adding to your life, then you start to have that disconnect between, and that's why you have a lot of distinguishing differences between different brands, because we all have different types of marketing. So, and consumers try to connect more with brands that create value in their lives. If I look at it from a point of marketing, for example, and this is something actually SMEs can do, because sometimes SMEs think they can't work with influencers. But if I look at a brand that has a long-term relationship with an influencer, it starts to create a correlation between that influencer and the brand. And if I see as a consumer the value that the brand is giving in my influencer's life, then I start to see it as part of my life, not just a product. That's what I was saying, creating that emotional connection between what you do and your customers' lives is very, very important. It has to come from a point of a value exchange, that you're providing value for me in my life, not just, you're not just selling me a product. And that, I say, is the distinguishing factor between most brands. So if you're an SME and you're wondering, how do I start storytelling? Is it for me? I would say yes. The only actually thing that you need is a phone. And I think everybody these days has a smartphone. And if you don't, you know someone you can borrow from. And from a point of how do I start, or how do I do it, I would say let's stick to the ethos of storytelling. I look back at the way we used to do storytelling back when we were kids. From a traditional point of view, is every story has a character, there is a plot, and there is a solution. So if I'm looking at from a business perspective and trying to storytell around my business, I'm looking at how differently can I distinguish myself from someone who's doing the same business as me. And I would say, why don't you start with showing how your product is made? Using a simple phone, just show the process that you take to create your product. The other thing you can do is show some of your customers using your products. And sometimes that also acts as a marketing gimmick, because if as a person, if I buy your product, you just tell me, please post it for me on social media, that person is actually marketing for me. So if I'm thinking about your social media feed, for example, your social media page, if I go to it and I see stories or videos of how you make your product, the people who make your product, how fun it is to work at your shop or your environment that you work in. If I see some images or videos of customers who are actually using your product, then ideally as a customer, I become more immersed in you as a brand, rather than just having a social media feed where it's just pictures of your product. That's very different, and that's the same thing that people do every time. But how do you distinguish yourself? If I come to your page and I see all these different tidbits and stories that you're trying to tell, it's much more of an emotional connection that you're trying to create with me than selling. And I would say that is the biggest win, and that's the easiest way that you can actually start, simply by using a phone.